everyone, welcome to Farm Space. We are here with Sakata today. We are talking lettuce or slaw or leafy vegetables. Call it what you want at the end of the day. They're doing it here at Can Agri under hydroponics. They've got their own unique system. I'm talking to Francois today. If you've ever wondered, you just say, listen, I just want to put up a shed. I want to put in some slaw. It's going to be easy and quick. Check this video. And then you'll see at the end of the day if it's so easy and quick. But let's find out. Francois, how are you doing?
I'm good, I'm good.
Glad to hear. Listen, very, very impressive setup that you've got here. First of all, give me a little bit of background. How did you end up in the lettuce business?
Well, a friend of mine started playing around with hydroponics as a hobby, as a lot of people do. And it developed into a little bit more than a hobby, and I got involved and started looking at it as a potential business because we saw that vertical farming as an industry is going in a very logical direction, but we feel that it's missing a few of the milestones along the way. And so we soon realized that lettuce isn't a Louis Vuitton handbag that we can go and sell in the mall for 300% more just because we grow it in a fancy way. You can maybe get a tiny little premium, but at the end of the day, it's just lettuce. And
a leaf is a leaf.
A leaf is a leaf. You're not going to sell it for $500. So we have to, at the end of the day, find a way to grow lettuce, intense system, high volumes, consistent quality in a manner that is low energy, uses a lot low energy, and we needed to then find out whether this is going to be financially feasible. And to do that, we had to move from proof of concept to semi-commercial size to be able to see what our inputs were per kilogram. What is our cost per kilogram for labor, energy, packaging, seed, specifically seed.
And so for that test, you basically just had to put up a whole greenhouse.
Yes.
With let's call it a whole multi-story greenhouse, yes, just to do that testing and see, listen, is this actually a feasible business model?
Correct. You can't determine what your labor cost or your seed cost or your energy cost is doing it on a very small scale. You can have a good guess, but you're not going to be accurate. And our intention was to be very accurate on what our cost per kilogram is, because we need to go and plug those inputs in at different places around the world. So if I want to go to France, I want to be able to see what is my kilowatt hour rate there, plug it into the model, what is their labor rate per hour, what is their packaging cost, seed cost, and then we got a model that tells us, hey, it's good to go to Australia, or it's good to go to America, or it's good to go to Europe or UAE or wherever.
So, okay, I want to go through the whole system a little bit later on, but let's start. We're now in the nursery. So just explain to me quickly, what's the purpose of the nursery and what are we looking at here?
So obviously we would like to have control over the germination and the quality of our seedlings.
Yep.
We can't take a seed and grow it directly in the hydroponic system, because you'll see later we're using these vertical stacks to grow vertically, and you can only go and transplant a tiny little plant in there and let it grow. You can't put a seed in there. So the seed needs to germinate in something, in a substrate. And for that, we germinate them in seedling trays in the nursery. And from here then...
so this is basically these ones. How old are they now?
These have just germinated. They're probably 3-4 days old.
Okay.
From seeded to where they are now. And from here we let them grow for 3 weeks. Around about 2.5 in summer, and at the end of week 3 then they go from the nursery and then they go into high school. Then we plant them out in the big system.
So then they're basically there in the full hydroponic system.
Yes.
So, but are these more or less ready for transplanting?
They're
now?
more or less ready for transplant.
So they can they basically then you
Correct.
take out and then you put there.
Correct.
And then just a question, because there's this I've seen these hydroponic systems where they literally, there's no soil involved, they just like almost drip feed them whatever, just a little bit of water, and they say that they put all the nutrients in there and so forth. But if I look at this, you don't go that route. You basically transplant it with the soil, and it still has that little bit of soil that it grows with. Am I correct?
Yeah, so because you need a little bit of substrate to germinate the seed in, we use these seedling trays, and we have these little grow baskets.
Yeah.
We need the basket because it hangs in the basket in the grow stack.
Ah, okay.
So that suspends the little seedling, but that's the only tiny little bit of grow medium that we have. From here, the roots grow out, and we'll see later how they grow and lay in the stack. So this is the seedling. Also, if we go to places in the world where labor is difficult or expensive and not available, and we have to start looking at robotics to be able to transplant, then this little basket is going to be pushed from below so that the gripper of the robot arm can go and plant it. So the basket has more than one reason for being. It is a plant-based material,
yeah.
Which decomposes depending on what amount of additive we add. We let it decompose over 18 months. In that time, we recycle them 3 times.
Is this something that you developed specifically for the system?
For the system, yes.
That's interesting. Okay, so let's go and have a look.
Show you the little seedling. So this is the little seedling now in the basket. So this little guy is now going to go from here into the nursery.
Awesome. Okay, so let's go and have a look there and see what the rest of the process looks like. Okay, so now we're here at the, let's call it the multi-level hydroponic greenhouse. So plants get transplanted from the nursery to here, and then they grow until they're fully mature, and then they go out to packaging and so forth. So Francois, explain to us quickly what's going on here. What are we seeing here?
So this is the vertical growing system. These are rows of vertical stacks.
Yep.
Each one of these stacks contain 80 little plants. And so there's around about 200 of these stacks in one of these rows, and there's 24 rows in total.
Come and show me here quickly what are we seeing here when we look at one of these plants, for example.
So let's take this one out. Yeah. So this is now the little plant.
Yep.
And there you can see the roots. This is the little grow plug that we saw in the nursery. So we plant the seedling into the grow stack, and then it grows here for 21 to 35 days, depending on at what point we decide to harvest it.
And this pipe behind it, what's the purpose of this?
So what these stacks do is they provide us with many planting opportunities in a vertical layer, and they're wide enough so that we allow sunlight to come through to the lower levels. And what we do is we pump water from our crop tanks to the top of the stacks, and then it comes down with gravity and flows from the root of one plant to the next plant, and then ends up back into the crop tank, where it's then recycled. So every 2 rows is serviced by one crop tank.
Yep.
And so that's one crop. And so we've got 12 crops, and that's how we cycle through the greenhouse in 1 month.
So many questions. Okay, it starts at the beginning. So you've gone for a clear roof, but there's people out there that basically say, no, but you know what, we can do cultivation, vertical farming in like a warehouse type setup, and we'll just give them the sunlight that they need with LEDs, and
right.
Because these things don't use so much power. Why did you go for a clear roof?
Maybe why did we start with vertical farming in the first place?
Let's start there.
It's because we realized that we can't sell lettuce at the price that you need to sell it if you use LED lights, if you pay for running those LED lights. If you put it in an enclosed building, you need to provide air conditioning, ventilation, humidification, dehumidification. All of these things consume massive amounts of energy. And if you do that in an enclosed environment, in a building itself, then you're going to end up paying so much more for lettuce than what you should. Now, we can't price lettuce like Louis Vuitton handbags and sell it for a massive amount of money. So we need to be able to sell it at a competitive price. To do that, we need to reduce our input costs on energy specifically.
Okay.
So it makes logic sense to take it from outside into a building to put LED lights. It's possible to do that. It's not profitable to do that.
I'm 100% with you. So you're basically using a resource that you're getting for free in any case, aka the sun.
Yes.
And basically using that energy to grow the plants. For those of you not familiar with the photosynthesis process, that's where we need sunlight and water and carbon dioxide and, well, usually like a growing medium, or they say like ground, yeah, but nutrients and so forth, to basically at the end of the day convert it to sugars, which is nothing else that you're getting in the plant. So in this case, sun is important, or we need to have like an artificial lighting system, which you say, with all the calculations that you did, it's not feasible to go that route out of an economic point of view, because you've got a limited amount of premium that you can charge on the product. Am I correct?
Correct. So we need to reduce the input cost. To reduce it, we make use of sunlight, and we make use of greenhouses so that we can make use of sunlight. But there's a problem with greenhouses, and that is that, and one of the things that motivated people to go into buildings was, but it's very difficult to maintain even climate throughout the greenhouse. And we had to fix that if we were going to be successful in growing in a greenhouse. So it's one thing to make use of the light, it's one thing to have many plants per square meter, but now you need to maintain an even climate. So how they do it in Europe and in other places in the world where they want to heat up greenhouses or cool greenhouses, they have pipes along the walls and pipes along the floors, and they pump water through those pipes, and they heat or cool that water depending on when they want to heat or cool the greenhouse. So what we do is we already have 4,000 pipes just in this greenhouse. It's one giant radiator, and we already have water flowing through the pipes. So if we heat or cool the water that flows through these pipes, we can use this big radiator to maintain an even climate throughout the greenhouse.
But doesn't that, am I correct in saying that instead of using just cold water to do this, you basically heat the water already up until a certain point, but doesn't that have an adverse effect on the plants?
No, so we don't heat or cool the plant if it doesn't want to be heated or cooled. If the greenhouse is becoming hot, we need to cool the plants down. So then we'll cool the water with the nutrients that flow to the plants. We'll cool that water ever so slightly, and then bring cool cold water to the root zone. That creates a microclimate around the plants. So on a hot day, if you're walking over here, you will feel that it's warmer than if you go closer to the wall. You'll feel against your cheek that it's cooler. So there's a microclimate that forms, and we cool the plants, not the whole greenhouse. It's more efficient than running pipes on the floors, and you get an even climate, not hot and cold.
How do you know what's the temperature that the plants like? I mean, if you take my bucket, I live in my little ice box, and my wife is in a heater on that side. So how do you know what's the temperature that the plants want?
We monitor the temperature of the greenhouse. So we have temperature probes throughout the greenhouse, and then we have probes in the water that tell us what the water temperature is. And we look at the delta T, the differential between the greenhouse temperature and the water temperature. Then there's also another step which we can take and will take in future, and that is having on every row one infrared little camera which monitors the temperature of the leaf itself. And so using these technology, the assistance of technology, we're able to monitor the plant temperature.
Okay, so for anyone that wants that's now looking at this and goes like, oh, awesome. Okay, so I've got 3 hectares of land, and I don't have access to a lot of land, so this is like a no-brainer. I can just go and put up these greenhouses, and Bob's your uncle. I'm a proper lettuce farmer, and everything is as well. What are the challenges?
Well, to be able to scale this down to a small scale, there's a lot of equipment that you need to run it. So, for example, the technology that I mentioned, just as far as monitoring the plant temperature.
Then you bring in the scale thing again, because the technology cost is almost the same for small scale, large scale. Technology cost the same.
So we use, for example, we need to keep the water that flows through these stacks, we need to keep it bacteria and virus free. Because if we don't, then things will go wrong and will be spectacular on a very large scale. So the equipment that's required to keep that water clean, i.e. filters and UV light systems, are quite expensive. And if you're going to run a tiny little farm with expensive equipment like that, then you're not going to get that economy of scale. Then there's the issue that you have to, with a fragile product like lettuce, it's not a potato that I can harvest or an apple that I can keep for very long. It's something which if I harvest it, I must pack it and I must sell it. So you need a pack house and you need cold room facilities to be able to process the produce that you grow.
And on that point, so basically, you also, I'm guessing, and here's where the crux actually comes in. You've got a market which is a constant market. It wants a little bit every week.
Every day.
Every day, sorry. Yeah. Every single day it wants a little bit, bits and bits and bits and bits. So you need to be able to supply that every single day for you to be able to get that market. Otherwise, this is not something that you can just go and dump on Joburg Market, no. For example. It doesn't work like that.
Typically, lettuce crop, which is harvested in the field, comes into a pack house, it's packed, then it has to be washed, because you have to get rid of the snails and the dirt, which we don't have to. And that lettuce goes through a wash process, and that goes into a packet with typically 3 to 4 day shelf life. So it's not something that you can load on a link and send it to market. You don't have the ability to sell that massive amount on one day. So you want to feed your market with a constant stream of good quality product. Our product does not need to be washed. So it means that we have a 15-day shelf life.
Well, that makes a difference in terms of wastage when I as consumer buy the thing. I mean, usually, unless you've got a big braai where you're making a big salad or something, you usually throw half of the lettuce away.
Correct.
That's just how it works.
Correct.
And in this case now, I can actually use up more of the products, so that actually makes economic sense as well.
So you can open a packet, and you can use half of it, and you can close the packet or the tub and put it back in the fridge. You don't have to chuck the whole thing away.
But you're saying that you don't have to wash it, okay? So does that then mean, what about pesticides, those types of things? So what is your, do you have any pesticide applications here? What do you do?
As a norm, we don't use pesticides. So, but that does not mean that if I do get a problem, that I'm not going to go that route.
Yeah.
So, as a rule, our product doesn't have any pesticide on it, and it doesn't have any dirt or any snails or insects. So, we pack this unwashed. You, as the end user, should rinse it in any event.
Yeah, just rinse it.
Just rinse it. But why don't we want to wash it? Because, first of all, the wash process destroys the product. When we harvest our product, we harvest the whole thing, and then we first cool the whole plant, including the roots, down to 5 degrees. It goes very quickly. And that stops it breathing through the stoma on the underside of the leaf. And then when we cut the roots off, it stays fresh for longer. When you put it through a wash process, then you have to wash off any germs and bacteria that's on the product, and you have to wash the dirt off. That means that you have to use chlorine in the water. So the normal wash process is a chlorine rinse, or a chlorine wash. And then it goes through a spinner to get rid of the water. So that means that the leaf now gets all crushed up. Now every one of those little creases is the same as a cut. And that's where the bacteria will go first. So that's why you now have produce only lasting 3 days, because you've stripped it of all good bacteria that protects it against decay. You've stripped the oils which is on the top of the leaf and the taste, so all the lettuce tastes the same now. And now you've damaged it to such an extent that there's many places for the bacteria to attack it. Hence, you get a 3-day shelf life. If you just take the produce like that, cut it in one spot, put it in a packet, it lasts 15 days. You take it out of the packet, just rinse it with normal water without stripping the taste and the oils. And now you can have a different tasting butter lettuce to a fancy lettuce to a 𝗩𝗲𝗴𝗲𝗫. All of them taste different with a different flavor profile.
So you now basically took lettuce and went to made a science of it.
No, I think it was a science on its own. Why just stop destroying it?
100%. That's what I'm saying. But I mean, these are things that, as an end consumer, I don't know. I mean, I go and buy a bag of lettuce or whatever, and
well, up till 5 years ago, I also wanted the washed lettuce, and my wife as well. So now we understand that if you don't wash lettuce or put it through that process, then you're going to end up with a much superior product that tastes better, lasts longer. And that's the benefit of what these high-intensity vertical farms bring to the consumer. But we as South Africans don't understand the intricacies of it, and it will take a while for us to understand that.
Okay, if you were to give me advice, I want to put up something like this.
Don't.
Tell me why. What is the real 𝗖𝗿𝗴𝗲? What's the challenges that we've got with something like this?
Well, I think first of all, we're in South Africa.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, lettuce is a higher LSM product. So you're struggling to cope in making ends meet, then you're going to buy things which fill you up, not necessarily nutritious.
Yeah.
So lettuce in South Africa is sold in the middle and higher income groups, and the majority of South Africa is not in that market. So
small market.
So we have a small market to start with. We are growing in South Africa, which is almost paradise for growing lettuce. We have such a mild and nice climate that it's easy to grow it outside there, compared to, it doesn't have the same quality, all of those things. But until your market is
you need to be ready to pay for that 10% extra value add.
Correct.
But it's costing you, let's say, 30 or 40% more to actually produce that 10%. That's that whole pyramid thing.
I would say that here in South Africa, we can almost compete with somebody who grows outside, but our market's not prepared to pay a premium for the quality of our product. So we built this as a R&D facility almost.
Yeah.
It's a very large R&D facility.
Yeah, so I wanted to say, it's like, let's just put up a small one.
Yeah, so we first had proof of concept, then we realized that we need to understand the economics. Then we built this one, which is an R&D facility. And we'll now make it bigger, now that we know that the numbers work for us.
And that it's actually sustainable, but you need to be prepared to do a proper capital outlay and do it correctly.
Yes.
Otherwise, just leave it.
And you need to have the market to be able to sell this kind of volume, because you can't do it on a small scale. It's not going to be profitable on a small scale. In fact, this over here is not big enough. We need to make this double as big as what it is to be properly profitable. But then you need to be able to sell it. So if you haven't got the ability to sell the product, then you mustn't put up a vertical farm. You must you need two components. You must be able to grow it, which we know we can do. And you must be able to sell it, which in South Africa we're starting to do. If we go to, let's say, for example, France, I don't want to go there and put up a farm and then go and look for market. I want to find the right partner so that we know we can grow it. I need somebody with deep experience in retail, sales, and distribution in this space.
Do I understand your business model correctly? So yes, you are growing now for the South African market in terms of just paying for the R&D of this,
yes.
But then you want to be able to take this internationally to other places that can actually pay a premium, and there you partner up with someone, and then at the end of the day, you give them a working solution, and you profit out of those models that you put up everywhere around the world.
Correct. So
that makes sense.
So it's finding the right partners and the right.
And you've been busy now with this for how many years?
So 5 years since we started building here.
Yeah.
Before that, probably 3 years of proof of concept.
So already 8 years down the line,
8 years.
and you're now getting to a stage where you can start scaling. Awesome. Well, it's agriculture, eh? As they say, a cow is pregnant for 9 months. Doesn't matter how many bulls you put on her.
Correct, correct.
Francois, thank you very much. It was very, very insightful.